Hello guys, with a new story, but I have to do an announcement. If you haven't heard story number 15, which is a husband and an ex-husband living with her at the same house, you have to listen to it before you listen to this one, because that story is part 1 and this story is part 2. And it's very interesting. There is a massive twist in the story, and it's unfortunate circumstances. Another murder happened, and you want to listen to it. Shall we go? Let's go. So in our last story, we talked about multiple events happened to a guy called Ayyash, who had unfortunate circumstances when he was a kid. He suffered so much. Eventually he ended his own life, which seems to be a murder, but he ended up to be ending his own life out of desperation, which is so sad and unfortunate and should never happen to anybody. Because if you have beloved ones and family and even strangers around you, the world is still a good place. There is a lot of good people around you, and nothing in this world worth it at all. So that unfortunate person had a baby with a woman called Mary. She remarried another guy called Amin, and now this is the story of the baby whose name is Mohammad. Mohammad grew up with a stepfather who had, as we told in the previous story, who had 2 brothers and 1 sister. And no, sorry, I don't edit my stories, so I don't want to cut them off. It's told from my memory. I translate at the spot, so it's difficult already and time consuming. Amin, the stepfather, had 1 brother and 1 sister and him. And Amir is married to Mary, who inherited so much money from the unfortunate person who ended up his life. His name is Ayyash. And of course the entire money goes to his son Mohammad. But what happened before Ayyash's death, Mary asked her husband to transfer all assets in her name, so she take care of the assets for her son and for him, since he became paralyzed because he had a stroke. And of course it was a trick, because after that she asked him for a divorce, and he did divorce her so she can go with someone else, because she never liked him, because he was disgusting in her eyes and he was dirty and ugly, as the report says. So after his death, the family, his aunt Aisha, who was already in her 60s and had grown-up kids, they all loved Muhammad, and because they knew he is very wealthy because he inherited his entire dad wealth, they want to take him with them to grow up, because his mom was a bitch. She wasn't a good woman, and she didn't welcome her deceased ex-husband family. She didn't want anybody of them around them, because she knew they are after the money when they were, and they were just kind people. Of course they will care about their nephew and their relative and want to take care of his money, because he's in the hands of a stranger, which is the stepdad that they don't know anything about. They went to court to claim the baby, but the mom was in a good condition, Mary. She had a house, she had so much money, she had a stable life, she had 3 other kids, 2 boys and 1 girl, and she had a husband, they had a business. So they lost the case in the court. Of course the mom has the priority to keep the kid and to keep the entire wealth, and the family couldn't do anything. So Mary cut him off from his aunt and his family from his dad's side, and that was it. Amin, Mary's husband, he was plotting his own plot, and he became the controller of everything. He controlled Mary like if she was a ring in his finger, as they say there. He tricked her. He told her, hey, I'm your husband, I love you, we have kids, we have a happy life. Why don't you, I think you should listen to my plan, and this is the best solution, so we get rid of your ex-husband family. And to protect your son's wealth, and this is our money, not theirs. She said, what do you say? What is your plan? What is the best for us, you think? He said, I think we should sell our assets and everything and liquidate it and then buy other assets with it, so they cannot tell what we have. They don't know what land we have, they don't know what business we have, and we buy brand new things from scratch, and we build everything from scratch, and we keep the money for ourselves until your son is old enough to take his money. Dumbass Mary, she was deeply in love, and she listened to him, and she sold everything her son owns, and she owns, wrote everything in her husband's name. And the guy was really good with money because they used to do jam. They had a farm where they sell fruits and then they manufacture them at home. With all that money, he bought his own manufacturing plant and started doing that, and hired people and had a team and had equipment he bought from Germany where they boil fruits. And then sanitize the jars in a special machine where they boil them in very hot water, massive tanks. And, small plant that does a family business, but it was a professional and really well equipped. Mary with the kids, she felt restrained. Her husband is outside the house the whole time. He's a businessman. He sometimes spends the night in the plant. Every day, all employees, they saw him opening the manufacturer himself, and he would shut it down himself and close the door. Never missed any day at the work. He was really all in this business. And Mary felt alone. She felt like she needs to do more. She used to manage all this business on her own, and now with the kids, she wanted to still go back to work and do something. So she herself got some money from what they sold and opened her own tailoring facility. She hired a couple girls from her town, and she started doing uniforms and tailoring specific uniforms for schools or nursing or the military or anybody who want anything. She would just fulfill orders for businesses for uniforms. Days passed, years passed, and not years passed, let's say days passed, and they needed a nanny. So her husband Amin said, why don't we bring my young sister, and she would take care of the kids while we are working away. And his sister said yes, and Mary approved that too. Amin called his family and told her sister, you have to travel and come to my town, so you take care of the kids while we are away, and we will pay you good money. And his sister was really thrilled because they live in a mansion. They have a very comfortable life, and she would love to go there. The expected happened, or maybe you didn't expect that. He lives with a stepdad. He doesn't like him because Mohammad now is 14. No, he's 6 years old. He's 6 years old. He goes to school, or 7 years old. And the Amin's sister didn't take care of Mohammad as she took care of her own nephews and nieces. She wouldn't even feed him well. He would stay hungry until until Mary and the husband came home to feed him. Poor Mohammad lived another hell on earth. After he was orphan, his mom didn't care about him. His dad passed away, and his stepdad didn't even like him because with years passed and days passed, Mohammad ended up to be brilliant and really good, very good kid. His teachers loved him. The neighbors loved him. He was really good in school. He even was way better than his own brothers and sisters. Even the school told the dad when they would call the parents for evaluation of the kids' low school performance, they would tell them, hey, how come their own brother is that brilliant and that good, and they are not that good. You should take care of them and put more effort in their schooling. Amin, of course, hated Mohammed God, and he told his mom when he was 14 years old he should leave his school. He was in high school, 14 or 15. He should leave his school. He was tricking Mary even. He should leave his school and I should teach him how to be a businessman, and he should come and help me at work. I need help and I don't trust these strangers. He's a family member and he should quit school and come to help me at my business. Muhammad went for one day and skipped school, and he didn't like that. He loves school and he's really good at his school. So what he did, he went back to school and told his mom, I don't want to go and work. I'm going to go and live with my aunt, Aisha. And the aunt welcomed him with open hands because they still think he has all that money, and they love him. He's a really good kid. All his cousins loved him so much, and he had a really good relationship with them. And an old incident happened when he was 6 years old, and the first time that Amin's sister came to help with the babysitting with the kids, she used to beat him up even when she used to pick him up from school, because she has to pick him up from in a specific time. She used to beat him up the whole way back home for no reason. Even one day after like a year or two, she neglected him and she never picked him up from the school, and he was announced missing. She panicked and went to Mary's house, Mary's shop, tailoring shop, and she told her, I can't find your son. He never came home, and the school says he's not there. I don't know where he went. Mary freaked out. She didn't care about her son, but she freaked out, started crying. Now he's precious. She told her, I told you to pick him up at a certain time. You must have neglected him and didn't pick him up. They looked everywhere. They called the police. 2 days he was missing. Mary lost her mind, and then eventually Aisha, the police came to investigate, and she said he has an aunt called Aisha. She hates us and she hates him. She must have kidnapped him. The police believed Mary and went to Aisha's house, and he was there. So the police arrested Aisha and her husband, accusing them of kidnapping. And Aisha said, no, he's our cousin. We didn't kidnap him. Nobody picked him up from school. So the school called us because we left our number from when my brother was alive. And they called us and we picked him up. And since they neglect him, they don't want him, they don't take good care of him, we kept him with us. And actually, when Mary wanna take Muhammad back home that day when he was 6-7 years old, when he got neglected in school, he didn't want to leave his aunt's house. He want to stay there. He loved it so much because he's away from the abuse that Amin's sister was putting on him, and the hunger that he suffered, and the lack of love and care. So when he turned 14 and the abuse is still continuing, he just left everybody, and he has the power now to leave the house, and he want to finish his education, and just left home and stayed with his aunt. His aunt welcomed him, of course, with open hands. Said he's a burden. If he want to stay with his aunt, he can go. I don't care about him anymore. Mary was so busy with her troubles because after years passed, she gained a little bit weight. And ironically, she developed a skin disease. I don't know what to call it in English, but it's similar to eczema. It leaves white flakes on the skin, and it was just in her hands. And it's an immune disease, type of a disease, where the skin keeps multiplying and rapidly, and not giving it time to shed, because we shed skin cells all the time, but when you produce more than you shed, the layers of skin accumulates and it looks flaky and white. I'm sure by now you know the disease name, but I don't know it in English. So it started in her hands, and it spread all over her face and body, and she became disgusting to her husband. So she noticed he's missing a lot from the house. He's away for 3-4 days, And since he has the power now, since he has all the money in his name, he started treating her the same way she was treating her ex-husband, the poor Ayyash. He wouldn't sit next to her. He doesn't want to sleep next to her. He would spend nights and days outside the house. So she suspected he's with another woman. She would tell him, stay with us. He said, you're disgusting. I don't want to stay with you. And she's, of course, seeks the treatment, but I think it's karma or God that she has to pay back for what she did to that poor guy, Ayyash. Now she's suffering the same way he is suffering, and she recognized it. She kept telling herself, this is my punishment probably for what I did to Ayyash. And wow, that was so painful that she couldn't tolerate it at all. She was crying all the time. She was depressed. She even hated her husband, started spying on him, following him to work, hiring people to track him and see where he's going. And she found out that he has another apartment. He's sleeping with another woman. And guess who was that woman? She was a woman that works in her shop. And she was a younger girl. She was in her 20s, because now Mary, she's in her 40s or late 30s, and her husband is in his early 40s. And she lost her mind. She yelled at the girl at work. She said, I know what you are doing. I don't want you in my business. You're a traitor. How do you do that to me and steal my husband behind my back? And that girl told her, well, if I didn't go with him, someone else will go. And he came to me. I didn't go to him. You're disgusting and nobody want to be next to you. Long story short, the typical cheating story, what a blah, blah, blah. She confronted her husband and he told her, yeah, what can you do? You can't do anything. I don't want to be with you. You're disgusting. And thank God, you should thank God that I'm keeping you in the house with your kids. For the sake of kids, you should stay and shut up and be quiet. And I want to live my life the way I want. I'm going to be with whoever I want, and that's none of your business, and you can't change anything. So Mary fell in depression. She accepted her reality. She cannot do anything about it. And life just moved on. She kept going to her shop, and he kept going to his work and being away from the house and the kids. And the routine continued. He would open the shop and he would close it every day. And the employees got used to that. And the plant, I have to tell you some details about this plant and how it works. So they have the farms outside this manufacturing plants where they pick up the fruits. It gets sanitized and washed inside the plants. They have like an assembly line where people wash the fruits, pick up the bad ones and throw them away. Other machines chop it up, and then it gets boiled with sugar in a massive tanks. And then the jars or the containers get sanitized in another massive containers where water is being boiled to a very high degree. And those containers are very dangerous, so they are designed in a way where there is a very high fence around you can go climb them all the way up, but there is a fence. Impossible for you to jump and fall in. It's that secured. And because it's really dangerous. So you could go up and look into the tank, but impossible that you fall by mistake. There are bars and it's very high fence. One day the co-workers noticed that the plant was open, but there was no boss there. I mean, that day never showed up. And they were so shocked because he never missed a day at work. And then he went to Mary and told her, where is your husband? And since he's with another woman, she said, maybe he's with his other woman. I don't know where he is. And she didn't care. She thought he's just as usual away and maybe buying something and didn't care. A day passed, 2 days passed, and the employees were really concerned, so they called the police. This is extremely unusual. The police came. They looked around. His car is there. The door was open. There is no sign of a break-in. They looked through the entire manufacturing, and then they were so shocked that they found a body and skin floating on the sanitizing container, the third container. I explained that sanitized the jars. Immediately they shut down the plants. They turned off the machine. It was so hot. He was cooked to the point that his joints were, like his ligaments were floating. Literally, he was cooked there. And they didn't know who he is, but they assumed that's him, because he was completely, the skin was floating. It's really, I'm so sorry to say that, but you can imagine the scene. Immediately the police shut down the whole place, arrested everybody for investigation. They called his entire family for investigation, even the second wife, and the first wife also, his wife, parents and family, his sisters and mom and brothers. They investigated everybody, even Aisha. She has nothing to do with this. She was not welcomed in the house and she was far away, but she got investigated too. And everybody seemed to have a really legit alibi, except the second wife. She said she was at home, but there was no witness with her, because Mary was at work when the incident happened, because they took him to do, they collect forensic evidence, do a toxicology test on him, because it's obviously a murder. Since I explained before, it's impossible to fall in by mistake, so somebody must have he might have killed himself, and there is no reason for him to kill himself. He would have to climb up and drop himself, or somebody dropped him there. So they thought he might be intoxicated, or he's on drugs, so they took him to the morgue and did some test on him. I forgot what you call that place where forensic evidence is being collected and some tests being done on bodies. Anyway, so the results came back that even when they collected pieces and parts of him, the internals are still good. So there is no poison in his stomach. He's not drunk. He wasn't under drugs. But they found, even if you get cooked, the bones should still there. They found that there is a trauma to his skull. His skull was broken, like if he was hit with a very hard object, like a hammer or a metal rod or something. So Amin was dead already when he got thrown in the tank. So somebody must have killed him and they threw him in the tank. Of course, Mary was excluded. His second wife was excluded because Amin, as we said before, he's a very big guy, 6'3", very masculine, very big, healthy guy, and a woman cannot carry him alone. So who did it? The police says, who has keys to the plant? Somebody must have opened it, because they couldn't find the keys in Amin's pocket and nowhere to be found in the door or anywhere. They questioned Mary and she said she doesn't have keys. He's the only one who has keys. And they questioned the second wife and she said she doesn't have keys. So they had to go and search in Mary's house and in his second wife's house, the young wife house. And they found keys in her pants, keys to the plant, and they told her, how come you have keys and you said you don't have keys? At that moment, his second wife collapsed and started crying, and she said, I didn't do it, I didn't kill him, that guy killed him. And they told her, what guy? She said, and she gave them a name, and it was, of course, a lover that she has, that she was seeing behind her husband back, and she was cheating with him because Amin was probably 20, 19, 18 years older than her, so she was playing around with another younger guy. And she was seeing him and bringing him to the house when Amin was away at work, or when he spent the nights at work, or when he's seeing his kids at Mary's house. He walked in someday to his second wife's house, and he probably surprised her with that man. And that man, since he was a young guy, younger than Amin, he hit him with a rod in his head, because Amin probably lost his mind and started screaming and probably want to kill the kid. I mean the lover. And the lover hit him with a rod in his head, and he died at the spot. So they let him bleed to death, cleaned the place, carried the body to the plant, and throw him in the tank. They thought that he's gonna be dissolved in the tank and just get boiled until his body dissolve, and nobody will know anything, and nobody seen anything. And it was back in the 80s, or in the 90s at that time, and that's it. So they found who killed him. They got prosecuted, and both of them were sentenced to death. Or I think his second wife was sentenced life in prison, and the guy was sentenced hanged to death, because it's life for a life there. Mohammad continued his education, and he became really brilliant, and he took care of his mom. It's early 2000 now. Mary became really old, and she was able to hire a lawyer, so Amin family doesn't inherit any of the money, because it's not up to him. I mean, it wasn't belonging to him or to his family, so she hired a lawyer where he was able to get back, because it was a fraudulent activity back then when he took all the assets and sold it and put it in his name. She was able not to get it, all of it, but she got most of it, but a lot of it was lost, and Amin family inherited it because it was under his name. He already sold it, and everything got lost. Anyway, so Muhammad became wealthy, and he took care of his mom. Her disease she never got healed from her disease, and of course it's God's punishment, and she knew that, and she accepted her reality. And Muhammad lived happily ever after. Probably, I think he got married and had kids. And that's the end of our story. Hope you liked it, and if you have any comment, please write down. And don't forget to subscribe if you are new to my channel. And take care all until our next story. Bye bye.